Hello, everyone. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. I watched the second sorry, I watched the second season of Good Omens, and honestly, I had low expectations. The book was fantastic, but this felt like uncharted waters because season one ended where the book did. There are countless examples of successful book to movie adaptations where a studio forced the author to write a sequel so they could make a cash grab, or vice versa, where there was a successful first book, first movie, and then some network decides to try and make a sequel to it. So they bring the author back in, and the magic is gone. Jurassic Park, The Lost World is guilty of this. The first book, fantastic. Movie, one of the best of all time. But The Lost World, not so much in either regard, book or movie. The good thing about Good Omens is that Neil Gaiman and Terry Brooks had rough outlines of where the story could go if they decided to write a sequel. And I heard that rumor years ago and well before the first season of the show was even being planned. So that made me optimistic about a potentially good second season when there was no official source material to work with. Overall, I enjoyed Good Omens season two. It's quite British, but so was the first season. And hey, cool gamer, thank you for joining in. Awesome to have you here. Let me know in the comments where you fall on the alignment chart. I'm going to be going through all this in just a second. But within Good Omens, it's about a fallen angel who starts acting good-ish, whereas a rigid angel becomes to have morally gray moments. In that way, the show plays with the boundaries between good and evil in interesting ways and blend the two together so that there is no real right and wrong. Now, that gave me the idea to discuss good and evil alignments and how to build them into our stories. Many of you may be familiar with skipping ahead, this one, the 3x3 grid from Dungeons and Dragons. So you have lawful go on the left. Sorry, you have lawful on the left, most column, then neutral in the middle column, and then chaotic on the right column. And then the first row is good, middle row is neutral, bottom row is evil. But what do all these things mean? Covering the full spectrum as quickly as I can, let's go through it. We have lawful good, that is doing what's right and obeying the rules in doing it. Neutral good is doing the right thing, but bending the rules to accomplish those goals. Chaotic good is doing the right thing, but breaking the rules to do it. Also, the right thing can often prove to be questionable for these characters. One of my go-to examples for chaotic good are the Weasley twins. They are inherently out to help others, but along the way they open a joke shop to spread mayhem. It's also to spread jokes and to get people having fun, but I would argue that if they weren't under an authoritarian regime at their school, they wouldn't be regarded so highly. They would be just disruptive kids who don't necessarily live up to their potential at best. And at worst, just outright disruptions. Then we have lawful neutral, which is strictly obeying the order regardless of rules or laws. This applies to a moral code where a character may kill a person who happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they may save a murderer for questionable reasons. There's a show that I'm watching now called Blue Eyed Samurai. I'm about halfway through it, and there's a really cool scene where the samurai infiltrates a place and performs an assassination. And in making her escape, there's a child who witnesses her, and she was supposed to be completely invisible. Sure enough, things don't go well, and so in theory, there would have been less collateral damage if she had gone the, I guess, lawful neutral route or however route you want to go with, where she takes out a child. Now, that has nothing to do with that character. That character is a very moral person, so she gave instructions to the kid to just run off and get the guard and say that something happened. But because she let the kid live, The kid then knew that there was a samurai or assassin. There's somebody with a sword who was around this building where a murder happened, and so bad things ensue. Then there's the true neutral. They don't follow rules or a moral code. They're there. They are there. That's like the dude from The Big Lebowski. He isn't trying to save a kidnapped woman or get revenge for the people who broke into his home. He does those things, but he does them so he can get paid or so he can live his life without interruptions. And let's see here. Yeah, so my wife claims that she's chaotic good. I tend to run the gamut. Sometimes the light in being lawful evil, and I don't blame you. Yep, malicious compliance is hilarious. Dumbledore is chaotic good. I can see that. He, I think that he definitely does go into some evil territory where he allows people to get hurt and blatantly just lies to everyone to get his way. So questionable, but chaotic neutral, there's a perfect example. This is the characters who are truly free. And arguably, Monkey D. Luffy from One Piece is this way. He routinely lands on an island and overthrows whatever corrupt government is in place simply because the first person he met offered them food and they are being mistreated by those in power. There's actually a really fun spoiler filled YouTube channel called Mugiwara no Goofy that spoofs Monkey D. Luffy's actions from an outsider's point of view. And he actually refers to Monkey D. Luffy as the crazy crackhead captain who is unleashed on the world. Because if you don't know what's actually happening, you see him just come in and overthrow who's ever in charge. And yes, you're right. The governments in One Piece are extremely corrupt. And in fact, a lot of them are corrupt in magical ways where they are essentially turning everyone who there's a couple different governments, but one of them is turning anybody who rebels or anybody who speaks out against the rulers into toys who everyone else then loses the memory of that person. So they have toys they can control, and then the people who are living on the island forget that they had family members because they were transformed into those toys. But Monkey D. Luffy comes through and just completely destroys that regime and brings it back into the power of those who ruled before the ruthless dictator. So he is by far one of the most chaotic characters I can think of. Then there's lawful evil. That's using a strict code for personal gain. This can be tyrannical leaders. The go-to example is Darth Vader. He seeks the power to rule the galaxy. And to paraphrase one of his lines in response to the open debates of the Republic and their inefficiencies and the large amount of time it takes for them to resolve conflicts, if they can even resolve them, his response as Anakin is if they aren't solving the problems of the universe, someone should make them. And it's easy to see how that mindset can become Darth Vader, who, yes, technically he's not the one in charge, as Grand Moff Tarkin who blows up Alderaan, but Darth Vader kind of was involved in that whole scenario and tries to blow up multiple other planets. Fun times. Star Wars. Then you have neutral evil, which is no morals or rules, only self-indulgence. And lastly, you have chaotic evil, which is morals and rules that are twisted to create malevolent self-interests mixed with a lack of restraint. Perfect example is the Joker from Batman. Going back to good omens, you have the angel Aziraphale, who is lawful good, while being kind of led astray by the fallen angel Crowley, who is painted as chaotic evil. But I'd argue that Crowley is closer to chaotic neutral with spurts of chaotic good. And in fact, both of them become more neutral because they're on Earth and they experience humanity and all of our flaws and all of our joys and all of our life experiences. Whereas the angels up in heaven kind of have their own view and the demons down in hell kind of have their own view. Now, side note, watching Crowley, played by David Tennant, be an angel in disguise as he is hopping about, that alone makes the second season worth it. He is just like a kid in a candy shop. I wish I were on set because that must have been the most fun experience between him and Martin Sheen and all of them. They just look like it was fun to film that show. Good Omens. Now, here's another great example of the alignment chart, and it's one you've probably seen before. We have Lord of the Rings, because, well, Lord of the Rings can fit for basically any explanation I ever want to give. Now, Aragorn is obviously lawful good, as is Sauron's chaotic evil. Saruman's lawful evil makes sense because he craves power for the purpose of ruling over the humans of Middle Earth. I don't know if once he takes over Middle Earth or gets his shared region with Sauron, how well the people who helped, the beings who helped him get into power, namely the Uruk-hai, would have fared. The Uruk-hai were already kind of killing off the goblins as lots of inner revolts within Saruman's army. But in theory, he might have just tried to use them to rule over the humans of Middle Earth to dictate how they would live out their lives. On the other hand, you have Sauron, who wants to destroy everything and remake it as he sees fit. So you have two different spectrums of evil, and you kind of have ways in which they would act out differently, even though they kind of balance out each other and they both need to be taken out in Middle Earth. I would argue that Tom Bombadil, who isn't shown here, he's a better true neutral example than Treebeard, though his plot was cut from the movie. So likewise, Gollum is a better chaotic neutral than Smaug, who was in The Hobbit, not technically in The Lord of the Rings. But Gollum only wants to possess the One Ring. He doesn't care about anyone else or the events unfolding across Middle Earth. He wants to possess his precious. So now that we have all that out of the way, nice explanations of what those alignment charts are, who represents them, who personifies them, and some what they mean. Well, let's get into my 5 tips to using alignment charts to enhance our writing. Number 1, understanding. Alignment charts tell us who our characters are. There's a reason D&D campaigns and character creation tools utilize this, and expands beyond that. There's a lot of D&D like games, video games, whatever, where you basically create a character and then you kind of align them to this chart. Or very simplified version where you have your Commander Shepard from Mass Effect, where you go either good or evil, and it's simplified down. But a lot of different genres, a lot of different books, a lot of different movies, a lot of different games, they have these alignment charts in whatever form they are. They might be more than a 3x3 chart, they might be less. It gives a basic starting guide to how a character should act. And that should word is very important. Ooh, I got stop knocking this thing because it keeps shaking. Anyways, that should word is very important. If a character differs from their perceived alignment, that might conflict with reader expectations. If there's no reason for that conflict to be present or that dichotomy or whatever, then that will likely hurt a reader's overall perception or believability in the characters, and thus our overall enjoyment of the story. There are plenty of examples where you have a character who is, let's say lawful good, and then all of a sudden they decide to just disregard their moral code to kill someone. Well, if there's a reason for it, that's okay. If we find out the reason later on, whatever, I don't need everything explained to us at once. But somebody who holds the law above all else, it is very frustrating when they disregard that for no apparent reason. And that has been multiple experiences and reasons why I dislike certain stories. But if there is a reason for that unexpected action, then that could be a mystery to solve or a hint at a character who is not who they appear to be. This is a great way to foreshadow a spy among a group of friends, where you have somebody who is that lawful good. They follow the letter of the law every single step of the way. They are always the moral high ground. And then all of a sudden they decide to just kill an innocent person. Now, maybe it's that innocent person saw them when they shouldn't have, or they know some piece of information and this person needs to just nix them. But that could be a great way to hint that there's a spy. And the alignment chart is a great place to start with a character and show how they evolve over the story, which leads me right to number 2. Slight shifts are ideal. No one is rigidly one type of alignment. You saw Adriana claim that I was all over the place in terms of my personal alignment. And hey, Jordan, how's it going? You came in just in time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you got here. And yep, Dumbledore is a good boy, but he does kind of love power. And he did raise Harry to be a pig for the slaughter. So those are excellent points. Oh, yeah, yeah. And it seems like there might be a plot hole in physics when it comes to the magic of the Harry Potter world. So interesting point, but cool. Now, no one is originally one type of alignment. If they are, then they're likely a flat static character. And there are reasons to do that. There are plenty of James Bonds out there who are unchanged by the story that they're a part of. But for most stories, characters can and often do shift in their alignment, but they shouldn't shift too drastically. A character shouldn't go from lawful good or arguably lawful neutral to hypothetically chaotic evil, where she hypothetically rides a dragon and burns down King's Landing along with thousands of innocent civilians living there. That drastic shift is or was a betrayal to a character we have followed for 7 well written seasons. Watching that episode then became a direct slap in the face to myself and millions of other fans. Now, there is a counterpoint to that where if there is, or if they had made that shift believable, if they go from a lawful, good character who upholds the law and I guess kind of lawful evil or chaotic good, however one you want to look at, where there's retribution for those who harm others, those who enslave others, whether that is burning by dragons, whatever that may be. But if we go from that to a point where this character gets fed up with the world and how often it betrays her, to a point where she goes around slaughtering innocents, well, that could have been amazing and possibly one of the best shows and stories of all time. Instead, Game of Thrones to me is all but forgotten, except as a lesson for how not to tell a story. Yes, I know, and I can hear you from now, or I can hear you from here already in the future whenever you watch this, Adrian, by Books by Adrian. What I'm saying is a spear right through your heart. I willingly accept the black hole that has swallowed all good appreciation and enjoyment for myself when it comes to Game of Thrones. Never to return to my reading or watch list again unless I absolutely have to. Tracking these alignment shifts can show a character's growth over a series or the scars they carry. There's plenty of evil characters who become good. I guess I'll spoil it. Zuko, Prince Zuko. I'm going to do this nice breakdown of Avatar: The Last Airbender coming soon. Soon-ish, eventually, whenever I get around to it. But that character evolution from absolute evil, I guess kind of lawful or possibly neutral evil, if I thought about it really hard, the strict adherence to the law and making all those around them suffer, well, to becoming more of a good character and a boon to the heroes of the story. That was incredible to see that evolution over multiple seasons. And it took time. And there were plenty of missteps too, where he reverted back to his evil ways, only to realize, no, I was kind of on the right path and I've taken a step backwards. So that was fantastic storytelling. And having that gradual change was part of the reason why Avatar: The Last Airbender is top tier, fantastic storytelling. We have Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, we have Lord of the Rings and Avatar: The Last Airbender as some of the best stories of the past 100 years. Now, number 3, be diverse. In Good Omens, most of the angels and demons are forgettable. They are lawful good or lawful evil. They play their parts down to the letter. In fact, there are plot points where an invasion of Earth cannot begin without the proper paperwork in place. And so there's a fun, I mean this, I'm not being facetious or anything like that. There's a fun episode where they have to go through the bureaucracy of getting documentation signed and documentation filled out so that they can raise an army of demons, zombies, whatever. And then there's a counterpoint, which is really fun that I don't want to spoil, but they just start making up bureaucratic BS and it kind of works. But neither side question their tasks. So the angels don't question whether they should be invading Earth, just like the demons aren't questioning the reasons about why they're doing it. They simply obey what's being told to them. They are strictly lawful. Where the rules say I do this, I'm being told to do this, well, then I will do it. And that led to bland characters who are simply in the story rather than driving the story. And this works for side characters, or it's great for forces to push the protagonist. But part of what makes Good Omens so much fun to watch is that angel and demon combination at the heart of the story between the main protagonists. Their personalities and actions bounce off each other in a phenomenal manner, as does seeing, like I said, I would argue, let's see where we fall on the chart, but I would argue that overall we get some neutral good and neutral evil, or I guess lawful neutral and chaotic neutral. That's where I think it falls mostly. And let's check out the chat. So thank you, Mama Maggie, for joining us. You are awesome. I think it's more believable to move from evil to good and vice versa than it is to move from chaotic to lawful. I could see that, sure. There are very, what is it? Actually, there's a line from Good Omens that if you pay attention, they have a sign in there that says, you cannot say, or like people who say the road to hell is paved with good intentions will be flogged. Like I think there's a sign along those lines in the background that says something just like that. And let's see. Yeah, cool. Unless they're little children growing up, in which case it makes more sense to go from chaotic to lawful or lawful to chaotic. Makes sense. For Lord of the Rings, it's the favorite book series of all times. Yes, thank you. Thank you. It is absolutely wonderful. And I have it behind me somewhere. I don't know which way to point, but there's definitely the Lord of the Rings there. I'm planning to do a watch through with one of my friends coming up soon, which will be pretty cool. And soon is obviously a relative term. I have no idea when we'll get around to it. We've been saying this for years and years and years that we want to watch all 3 extended editions, but that is quite a commitment to go through. Now, number 4, stuck. Refer to the alignment chart. These alignments are the character archetypes. These can add critical levity or act as a set of tracks to guide the actions of the characters we write. If I can't think of a way for a character to act, I refer back to their basics, like the alignment chart. There's a bunch of different things I'll go through, which is how the characters acted in the past, where I want them to go in the future. But a great start is a lawful character would ask for an answer or expect the rules to lead them to a solution. Whereas a chaotic character would create their own luck. Sorry, chaotic evil character would create their own luck and turn the entire world upside down to serve their goals. This would be like if John Wick occurred without him ever owning a dog. So maybe a chaotic evil John Wick wants to eradicate all other the assassins and remove anyone he knows who knows who he is so he can live a life of peace or take out the competition. Now, again, that's not what the movie is about. He is on a journey of revenge. But if it were a little bit different, if his character were different, the story would be completely different. And that's much different than the, I would argue, lawful evil he seems to be. I don't know. I've never watched the movie, so everything I am saying about John Wick is secondhand. But from what I do know about it is he has a rigid moral compass, even as he's killing people for money. And the only reason why he stopped doing that is because he met some love interest who dies within the first 5 minutes of the movie. Cancer, I think. And then he gets a dog, or she got him a dog, and so he uses the dog to kind of stay sane. And then once the dog gets offed, well, all hell ensues. That's my understanding of John Wick. I have no idea how accurate that is. But lastly, number 5, we can use alignment charts to highlight flaws. Knowing where a character aligns can showcase their flaw or show them overcoming it. Going back to my character examples, Darth Vader is so driven to enforcing the law that he doesn't consider the laws or the person creating them, i.e., the Chancellor. He doesn't consider that the person he's serving or the people he's serving are corrupt until it's too late. As a lawful neutral Jedi, he obeys the laws of the Jedi Order and bends them as needed. That is until they betray him and he falls into the dark side, evil, everything, lawful evil, and he slaughters younglings. Most chaotic evil villains are overthrown because they believe too much in their own abilities and their ruling powers, and they don't understand the strength of the protagonists band together to defeat them. For example, Sauron put too much of his power and soul into the One Ring. Thus, when it was destroyed by a multi-nation and species fellowship, along with multiple battles, well, he was destroyed because his soul, his body couldn't exist without the soul that he placed into the ring. Shifting to One Piece, Luffy is too free. He acts without thinking. He punches many terrible people right in the face because that's what he wants to do, or they broke his moral code. Now, this results in a lot of trouble for him and his pirate crew, even when one of those punches against a despicable man was so well deserved. And it's arguably one of the shining moments throughout the entire series. But that lack of foresight unleashed the military admirals to quell the rookie pirates who were on the loose. And it almost spelled disaster for his journey before it truly began, or before it really took off, because that's well into the series. Now, those are my 5 tips to using character alignment charts in our writing. These are a perfect tool for character driven stories. I'm Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Writing to Write. Let me know in those comments what your alignment is. I'd like to think I'm lawful evil, but bounce into lawful neutral and chaotic neutral territory to uphold my own moral compass, which means that I would be a terrible character to write because I just bounce all around. I think my wife was right when she said that I am all over the place in terms of where I would fall in this alignment chart. But that's what a realistic person would be like. And a lot of our characters that we put into the page, well, they need to be something more than human. They need to be a lot more than a realistic person. And I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and X as Running to Write. So be sure to follow me and join with your own thoughts. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Running to Write monthly newsletter if you want regular updates on my sword musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned. I say this every week. I just sent out my year-end review, so you got about a month to sign up if you want to get my February updates. And spoiler alert, book 3 updates will be included in there. I think I'll include some stuff about skiing because I'm going to be doing that over the next couple of weekends, or over the next weekend. And I'll include information about whether or not I am going to AwesomeCon, because as of right now, I was expecting to hear back from them today if I had gotten in. I was kind of hoping if I didn't get in, I would still hear a response, but unfortunately, my mailbox has no new messages. So I will probably be reaching out to them to see if, I don't know, maybe I'm back up or if I was outright rejected. Didn't make the cut. There were a lot of people, I'm sure, who wanted to be vendors in the local authors group. But if I don't get that, then I'll be doing a race on that day instead, and I will be I can push back the publishing of my 3rd book. So lots of updates kind of hinge on that getting into AwesomeCon. But I'm rambling now, so I will wish you all a good night. And let me just check in here and tell me something. Have I ever watched Lord of the Rings with audio? Absolutely. I've an audio format. Audio format is probably a little bit different. No, I don't think I have. I've gone to concerts where they play the music and then they have the video going on in the background. I don't know if there's a good audio format for it. In fact, the only this is gonna this is going to be really rambling. The only really good audio format that I know of is National Treasure, where they have all the descriptions included in the narration. And I don't know where I watched that. I have no idea. I think it might be on Netflix where it's an option. So I guess check. Lord of the Rings is no longer on Netflix. So I don't know. Honestly, you can try Googling it. That would be my place to start. If Lord of the Rings does come back on Netflix, they might have that capability. I'm sure that it does exist. I just don't know where. So I'm really sorry about that. I don't have a better answer for you. But if you want, I can look it up and actually post it in the comments if I can find it. So I guess check back here and I will let you know if I get a good answer for you. But see you next time. And until then, let's align our characters. Have a wonderful night. And I will see you all not next week because I'm not doing it live, but the following week.